Welcome to the very, very first episode of the Diet Doctor podcast. The key trigger for me was the food pyramid and the misinformation and the jargon on the back of labels that was almost gibberish and so difficult to decipher and understand. Why would the foundation of this food pyramid, the base of it, say have 7 up to 9 servings of bread, pasta, or cereal? Why would we encourage kids to have 7 to 9 servings of cereal a day? The average person does not know that maltodextrin is a fancy way of saying sugar. We are in the age of information, but we're also in the age of misinformation. Knowledge hoarded is futile. Only when it is shared does it truly become wisdom. Welcome to the Diet Doctor podcast, where we discuss the science of nutrition and high performance, offering practical tools for everyday life. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the very, very first episode of the Diet Doctor podcast. Now, before we delve too deeply into nutrition and what macros are and micros are and phytonutrients, and even what a lot of people that follow me like to listen to, which is the prophetic side of health and wellness, I think we need to know why we ended up here anyway. How did we end up at nutrition? Because most people know me as the mathematics teacher. Now, one of the things that triggered my interest in nutrition was the food pyramid. I looked at the food pyramid and I noticed that it was upside down. Or to me, it felt like it was upside down. Nutrition wasn't my forte growing up. We didn't really know how to read labels, and that is still a problem today. In the very beginning, it was mathematics that stirred my interest. However, health and wellness was always something that was interesting to me. From having a background in Taekwondo for maybe 15 to 20 years, boxing and then eventually jiu-jitsu, nutrition is a part of your life. You eat more than you train. So generally speaking, we have to hold more weight to the topic of nutrition. Now, when I was looking at the food pyramid and noticed it was upside down, the first thing that stirred my interest was, why would the foundation of this food pyramid, the base of it, say have 7 up to 9 servings of bread, pasta, or cereal? 7 to 9 servings of bread, pasta, or cereal. That would be very difficult to execute even with intention. Now, bread, if I had 7 to 9 servings of bread, that would be fun, but it would be painful. Pasta, I can barely do 1 serving. Cereal is the one that sparked my interest the most, because having 7 to 9 servings of cereal, and cereal we know is a breakfast food, or it's known as a breakfast food, why would we encourage kids to have 7 to 9 servings of cereal a day? And then I started to inquire a little bit more as to how this very attractive, glossy, laminated poster ended up in every classroom, in every school, in every state around the country. It must have been very, very expensive, and it was. It was tens of millions of dollars as a project to get this done. When I found out the sponsors were a cereal company, and I'm not here to name and shame and mention names, that sponsored this particular venture into the school system, it started to make sense, because concurrent with that and alongside those very attractive glossy laminated posters of the food pyramid being upside down was a campaign, an ad campaign, a very aggressive ad campaign of how many Weet-Bix do you do? I think I just indirectly gave away who the company was, but anyway, how many Weet-Bix do you do? And if you remember, every athlete that you aspired to be like was on that commercial or eventually part of that campaign. How many Weet-Bix do you do? I do 14 Weet-Bix. I do 20 Weet-Bix. A really extravagant amount of calories for a child to be consuming and competing to consume for breakfast. Like, I couldn't do 14 Weet-Bix as an adult. So to encourage primary school kids to do that. And I think a lot of the obesity issues started to rise to the surface at the same time. The same thing with the Slip, Slop, Slap campaign. We won't get into that. But that's what sparked my nutrition and interest. And I always say, knowledge hoarded is futile. Only when it is shared does it truly become wisdom. You cannot hoard information. It is absolutely useless. And I find that is it's part of the culture. If this tall poppy syndrome culture that we have, maybe not so much in other cities as much as Sydney, but it does exist. People don't like to share knowledge that they have. And we're only here for a short period of time. This is a temporal abode. And in our tradition, we believe we're going to get judged on everything. Everything that you say, everything that you don't say. And if God has blessed you with a certain amount of information with regards to a topic, then it is your duty to share that information with others. We are in the age of information, but we're also in the age of misinformation. It's very easy to Google. We call them Dr. Google or Sheikh Google. If there's a question that comes to mind, they Google it and they say, brother, I've done the research. When somebody starts a sentence with, brother, I've done the research, that means you have to not just check or double check, but triple check everything that they've said. Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. Research-based evidence is not something that has become the norm anymore. And there's even a realm of nutrition that is called bro science, which to me makes no sense whatsoever. A colloquial word like bro with the word science should never be married together. That is a short spiel about what sparked my interest and motivated me to learn more about nutrition, about supplementation, the truth behind nutritional medicine and nutritional science, and then teach that to the masses. Is that where I started? No. In the very beginning, the initial course that I enrolled to study in was nuclear medicine, which was the diagnostic side of cancer. And cancer wasn't as rife as it is now. But I didn't mind the theory, but I didn't like the practical element of it. My first practicum was in 1997 at Bankstown Lidcombe Hospital, and it was understanding how to diagnose cancer using a gamma camera. We inject the patient with a radioactive pharmaceutical, and we put them in the gamma camera and find out where the tumor is, whether it's benign, malignant, etc. And sometimes it's good news, but most of the time it's bad news and it's quite debilitating. And I just didn't have I understand that somebody has to do that job. However, I didn't have what it takes to break the bad news and say, hypothetically speaking, Mr. Smith, that migraine that you're suffering from isn't just a migraine or dehydration or lack of sleep, but it is a brain tumor and it is stage 4. That's not something that I had the stomach to do. And sometimes to get out of breaking bad news to people, wearing a white lab coat, I would go to the bathroom, smack myself in the nose a few times, make my nose bleed over my lab coat, and then just say I have to be excused in order to get away from breaking the bad news. So I didn't have the stomach for it. Women do a lot better of a job at that than men do from experience. And then from there, I realized I wanted to stay at uni and I wanted to study, but I didn't want to apply myself too much. I didn't want to struggle at uni because I had a job. I had multiple jobs. I had, I think, 3 jobs at one stage, and I had a family that consisted of mum and 4 sisters to look after. I didn't have time to do something at uni that required my undivided attention. And so, as ridiculous as it sounds, I decided to do a double degree in mathematics because mathematics was my forte at school. I went into maths and I felt like I just had to turn up. I didn't really have to do much else outside of that, and I'd be okay. And I really, really enjoy mathematics. Even till today, if I get a past paper, I have a go at the questions. And from there, I worked in the private sector and the public sector in mathematics. And those skills came in handy. Nuclear medicine came in handy in the realm of nutrition because it is a science. And the more you understand anatomy and human physiology, the better you are at other aspects of health science. Mathematics also came in handy because nutrition is largely quantitative. It is qualitative to a large degree. If you look at the research on nutrition, there is qualitative analysis and there is quantitative analysis. So those skills also came in handy. From there, I taught mathematics for about 10 to 15 years in the private public sector at a secondary and tertiary level. Opened up a coaching college, premier coaching college, for over a decade. And that was a lot of fun. Even just prior to this, I bumped into one of the fathers of one of my ex-students. And you bump into them all the time. It's amazing. You go to see your accountant, your dentist, your lawyer. All these people are my ex-students. And it's an amazing feeling. And teaching developed skills of rapport. So your ability to develop rapport with people who may be sick, who may be an athlete, is very important in nutrition, because you have to understand that person. You have to understand the everything that comes with that human being, that allows you to then create an eating plan for them that not only will work, but is also sustainable. So their biography that they come with, and everyone comes with a different biography, will dictate what you will or will not do with that individual. For instance, if I get a client or a patient that says, Moodi, you've asked me here to have asparagus. I don't like asparagus. You can't say to that patient that you must have asparagus, otherwise this is not going to work and you're deviating from the plan. No, you find something else that has a similar nutritional profile that serves the same purpose that they do have a liking towards. And we'll talk about why we like and dislike foods probably in the next episode. And we'll go into the science of why our taste buds desire certain things and some things they don't. So all these skills came into fruition, and they came in handy when it came to nutrition. From mathematics, it didn't stop there. I started postgraduate research. I did a master's degree in research methodology, which is largely based on quantitative and qualitative analysis, as well as developing a research project and a dissertation, like a small mini thesis, if you want to call it that. I opted to do a double dissertation in the psychology of problem solving, word problem solving in particular, which was mathematics related. However, the skills that you learn in a master's degree of research methodology, and nobody graduated at Sydney Uni that year with that particular major, not because it's the most difficult, but it is quite stale. Now, it gives you the skills to be able to decipher the most detailed of case studies, of published journal articles, because even something that gets published can still have flaws, can still contain bias, and it gives you the tools that you need to be able to analyze research like you never have been able to prior acquiring these skills. So from there, I ended up developing a research project and went into vocational education and training, so training for adults. So stayed at uni at the same time, juggling 3 jobs to feed the family, and working all simultaneously. But it develops character. It makes you who you are. And all the skills, at the time, it seemed like a waste of time and seemed irrelevant. Like, you can't just jump from one degree to the next. You got to stick to a career path. But everything made sense at the end. And as we say, you can plan, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners. So everything came in handy. The discipline for work, whether it was delivering the paper, pushing trolleys, whatever it takes to feed your family, that level of discipline, along with being able to stick to something and follow through with it, even if you're not sure if it's for you. I don't like quitting things halfway, seeing things to the end. Mathematics was one of the biggest game changers, and then into vocational education and training. Teaching Cert 3, 4 and Diploma in Children's Services was also allowed me to develop skills that I would be able to use in the realm of nutrition and dealing with people, dealing with adults, dealing with corporates, dealing with schools and educating them on nutrition. All these skills came in handy. Teaching first aid came in handy. Understanding the human body in a way that a regular first aid teacher doesn't allows you to deliver the content with a lot more efficacy. One of the other things that I delved into, which was fitness, Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness. I did not like some of the courses that were out there, so I did choose a heavily science-based college that had the Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness. And I was so intrigued by it, and that I am in the process now of developing my own Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness, so stay tuned for that. We'll talk about that more in upcoming episodes, inshallah. But that is a brief rundown of how I ended up in nutrition. The key trigger for me was the food pyramid and the misinformation and the jargon on the back of labels that was almost gibberish and so difficult to decipher and understand. The average person does not know that maltodextrin is a fancy way of saying sugar, but by law, companies don't have to label it as sugar because it sits on the border of a simple carbohydrate and a complex carbohydrate. So you by law, you're allowed to label maltodextrin as a simple carb, sugars, or a complex carb like bread, pasta, cereal. And you can choose where you want to label it because it sort of sits on the fence. However, when you digest it, when you consume it and digest it and metabolize it, it spikes your insulin like sugar. The problem with that is people will look at a label and say, okay, this contains 20 grams of carbohydrates, but only 2 grams of sugar. That means the other 18 grams of carbs must be good for me. However, the other 18 grams of carbs are not sugars, they are maltodextrin, and although they are not labeled as sugar, they behave as such. So things like that and wanting to educate the masses, the major reasons why I delved into nutrition deeper and deeper. And you got to remember that when studying back then, you weren't able to find online articles. I remember in 1998, in my second year at uni, we had workshops organised by Yahoo on how to use a search engine at Fisher Library at Sydney University. So to do research, we would have to sit in the library for hours upon hours, finding articles, reading them cover to cover, and breaking them down. And research wasn't as easy as it is today. Whatever you are doing, stick to it. I'm sure that there is some benefit that you will acquire from it, whether it's nutrition, exercise, physiology, and nutrition is relevant to all of us. So the takeaway message, I think, for now is anything that you learn, I urge you, anything that you learn from up and coming episodes, please take that information and don't hoard it. Share it. Share it with your loved ones. Share it with your siblings. Share it with your parents. Share it over conversations at work or at the dinner table. Because as I say, and I always say, knowledge hoarded is futile. Only when it is shared does it truly become wisdom. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to talking to you more in depth about nutrition in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.